My novel, City of Sevens, is an urban fantasy, and it is about a young woman who discovers that she's a witch and she has a blood oath that ties her to a vampire overlord. And he wants her to get a job spying at a supernatural startup in San Francisco. So she has to go for an interview, and the excerpt is the interview, her getting a job there. And so this is an excerpt of the excerpt, like Lisa's. So I'll start. The space was huge, even bigger than it had looked from the outside. There was definitely some spatial trickery going on to make the inside larger than the outside. About 60 or so employees, mostly magical creatures interspersed with a few Sixer humans, bustled around the floor, holding team meetings and going over specs. A troop of tiny green fairies trailing green pixie dust flew over Nadia's head, startling her. A garden gnome in a pointy red hat argued with a banshee with a long white hair that floated up around her face like she was underwater, the banshee's voice rising to shrieking levels as they debated something about the wish seed app. Some numinals still had their glamours on, but most of them were freely exposed, revealing their true form. Nadia was surrounded by fairies with bright translucent wings, squat goblins with large pointy ears, shifters that were half changed into animals, sprites and elementals with bodies that dissolved into the air as they moved, and centaurs with mohawks and dreadlocks wearing Hawaiian shirts. Nadia fought the urge to stare and tried to keep her face impassive, like it was every day she saw this many supernatural creatures in an office environment, battling copy machines, playing foosball, and typing away at laptops. Anya led Nadia around the perimeter of the first floor, which consisted of a minimalistic open co-working space. Glass-encased conference rooms and offices lined the sides adjacent to the main area. In the back, a giant steel staircase wound up from the first floor to the second floor balcony that lined the perimeter of the space. One corner of the main floor had a cafe and lounge area next to a huge indoor oak tree that was crawling with goblin-like creatures serving up snacks and drinks. Employees sat at tables and on beanbag chairs eating lunch, while others played foosball and ping pong in a gaming area lined with retro arcade machines. On the wall, a gigantic flat-screen TV alternated news broadcasts with calming images of nature and sacred geometry. Over the sound system, the music changed. Nadia recognized the song by Nora and Pure. Several employees started dancing to the DJ's music as they worked at stand-up desks. Others bobbed their heads as they sat in front of their laptops. A giant mural covered an entire wall on the ground floor, and Nadia stopped for a second to admire it. It was like a Hermines Bosch street art mashup, complete with graffiti goddesses, immortal deities, and the battle between good and evil playing out in a vibrant tapestry of reds, purples, golds, and blues. Anya noticed Nadia's head swiveling about as she tried to look at everything. She chuckled. Sixers always lose their minds the first time they come here. How big is this place? It doesn't look like this could all fit in here from the outside. Bigger than you would think. There's several floors underneath this one as well, where the innovation labs and vaults are located. Nadia hurried to catch up with Anya's long strides. Do non-Sixers ever come inside? I think they might notice this isn't exactly your normal work environment. Oh, sure, but we warn all employees over the God speakers so they can put their glamours on before a muggle enters. You actually call them muggles? Nadia asked. She laughed, nodding. We screen movies every Thursday night. In the lounge, by the way. Last week was The Last Unicorn, not a dry eye in the room. They climbed the giant metal staircase to the second floor, and Anya led Nadia to one of the glass-walled conference rooms that lined the perimeter. A kind-looking woman in her 50s with a mane of dark, unruly curls loosely pinned on top of her head rose to her feet when they entered, a set of tiny translucent wings vibrating behind her. She was wearing a pink pantsuit and a floral neck scarf, which made her look vaguely like a real estate agent. She floated over and shook Nadia's hand warmly, giving off a distinct house mom vibe. You must be Nadia. Please, take a seat, she said with a benevolent fairy godmother smile, gesturing at one of the chairs around the conference room table. I'm Vega, the HR manager. Tattoos peeked out from under her jacket sleeves as the woman sat down and clasped her hands. Nadia took a seat, poised on the edge of her chair with perfect posture, and folded her hands in her lap. Well, to start off, said Vega, I'd like to congratulate you on passing Miss Aptitude test. We know it wasn't easy, but as I'm sure you're aware, we only hire humans for full-time positions if they have Sixer abilities and when we think they would be a good fit for the unique personality of the company. Vega shifted around some papers in front of her. She held up a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles to her face as she read from one of the sheets. As I told you on the phone, your background is exactly what we're looking for at the moment. Imogen McKenna, the director of Mist Foundation, is returning to Dublin at the end of summer. We're planning on finding a long-term replacement, but for now, we need someone to oversee the daily functions of the collection. As I noted in my resume, I have extensive cataloging experience with various museums and auction houses, including Smithsonian and Christie's. Vega nodded approvingly. Your most recent position after you graduated wasn't in the arts, though. Why the shift? Nadia took a deep breath. My experience in the arts was all unpaid internships. There aren't a lot of paid positions, and most of the time you have to continue as an intern until a position opens. I would have loved to get a job working for a museum or gallery, but with student loans and bills to pay, I didn't have that option. I always intended to pivot back. Nadia didn't mention that she could have continued as an intern, taking the money her father had offered her when she graduated, but she had wanted to prove that she didn't need him and could make it without his help or the strings that came with it. Understandable. I took many strange jobs over the years until I found a career at MISS. Are you familiar with MISS onboarding structure? New employees come on as unassigned. After working on several projects and with different departments, we develop a position and title that is customized to their interests and skills. It looks like you have some experience interacting with artists. Vega picked up her glasses again and squinted at the resume. Yes, that's correct. I interned one semester during school for a gallery in Virginia Beach. The owner had a very collaborative approach to running the gallery. I helped a lot with artist management and cultivating relationships with not only the clients, but with the artists as well. Vega's tiny wings fluttered behind her. Excellent. Our VP of Talent Management is looking for an assistant on some upcoming projects, and that could be a good fit for you as well as with the foundation. Nadia leaned forward slightly, trying to look eager. I'm definitely interested in that area. Vega nodded. Hobbies include horseback riding, sailing, field hockey, reading, chess, and volunteering. Sounds like you're pretty active. MISS actually has a few sports teams that play other startups in local leagues. If you're picked for the position, you should look into those. That would be great. I played on several intramural teams in college. Wonderful. Vega shuffled her papers together, collecting them into a folder. Well, that's it for me. I think you're very qualified and would be a good fit here. Our CEO, Rune Christensen, interviews all candidates, though, before we extend any formal offers. Normally, we'd have to come back for a second interview with him, but since Imogen is leaving, I want to expedite the process. I'll go see if he's available right now. Vega flitted out, leaving Nadia in the conference room. Alone, Nadia started to grow nervous. The Miss Psionic smartwatch on her wrist beeped at her change in mood. She smoothed down her blouse and slacks and ran a hand over the top of her dark hair, pulled back into a neat bun. Nadia squared her shoulders and took deep breaths, willing her racing heart to calm. In her mind, she practiced her interview smile and handshake, imagining how the encounter would go. After a few minutes, the door opened. Nadia rose to her feet. Her mother had always said you only get one chance to make a good impression, and Nadia wanted to win over the CEO. This job was going to be hers. A tall man with broad shoulders walked in. He wore jeans and a gray Henley shirt and held a two-pronged manila folder. He looked up from the papers he was reading. Nadia flushed. He was the most beautiful man that she had ever seen.